Hi, I'm Kaylin Amadeo, and this is the Boomers Ultimate Guide podcast, the place where boomers like me and like you can come together to learn, share, and grow a thriving business and vibrant life. Cue music. Hi, I'm Kaylin Amadeo, your boomer host and creator of the Boomers Ultimate Guide podcast, and I'm very happy to introduce you to this episode's guest, Andrew Pace. Over 50 and a member of the baby boomer generation, Andrew is America's unstuck coach. He brings a lifetime of experience and knowledge to those over 50 members of the baby boomer generation who find themselves stuck in their present or past. Andrew is actively involved in boomer interests, presenting seminars on various issues. His topics include dating, in which he is actively engaged, as well as online dating, relationships, career change, empty nest issues, and a host of other topics that hold baby boomers from really achieving success and happiness and love. Starting with a near-death event, which I'm hoping he'll share with us during this interview. His practice is based on his own 5+ year journey and experiences, and he is the author of Get Unstuck, a guide for those over 50. Andrew, welcome to the Boomers Ultimate Guide podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Glad to finally meet you.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I am thrilled that you could take the time. We were discussing before we started recording that Andrew is on the West Coast, so it's still early for him while we're recording this. I'm getting closer to lunchtime, but it's nice and early for him. So Andrew, let everyone know, in a nutshell, a little more about you, about this near-death experience that sort of changed, what you're doing.
Oh, yes. It changed my life completely. Before, I was much different field. I was in sales. Mm-hmm. I was selling advertising, not feeling fulfilled. I was in a lousy marriage, and my world had gotten very small. And the universe, there are no coincidences in this world. The universe wakes us up when we need to be woken up, and it woke me up with a bang. And to tell the short story of it it was on January 21st. 7 years ago now. 7 years ago. And I was taking my then wife and stepdaughter out for dessert. We went to a yogurt place, and where you get the yogurt by the ounce. You put all the good stuff on it.
Yeah, you put all the toppings.
All the toppings. One of my stepdaughter's favorite places.
Yeah.
And it's very small. So I thought this was going to be a good night because it was Martin Luther King's birthday. All the kids were off from school. And this place only has like 3 tables in it. And I used my best New York to score a table out from underneath. I just put myself back into the Chinese restaurant in New York City during the middle of the winter, and I just picked out a table, and I was going to get it no matter what. So I got the table. My wife and daughter went over and paid for their ice cream. I went, and between the sprinkles and the chocolate chips, I dropped dead.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
I'm stunned. And you say it so casually. Okay.
Well, I've told the story a lot of times, but it was just one of those things. And now the weird part about it, the strangest, I had a full physical the week before, head to toe. I had been in the doctor on Friday, and he said I was fine, a little overweight, a little high cholesterol, all the stuff you expect to hear when you're over 50.
Yes.
And I was fine. And then that Monday, that day, we had been in the same doctor that morning, because my wife's tests came back and they were terrible, and I knew she wouldn't listen. So he wanted me there just to back him up. Next morning, he walks in and he says, I got the wrong Pace here. I said, what do you mean? He says, your wife belongs in this bed, not you. I said, what do you mean? He said, if anybody I would have thought would have had a heart attack or a stroke, it would have been her. What are you doing here? And what it turned out was something they can't diagnose. It's called a third-degree left bundle block, which is the relay between the top of your heart and the bottom of your heart that sends oxygenated blood out to the body.
Okay.
Stops working, you die. Blood pressure goes from normal blood pressure to 0 immediately. That's why you hit the floor like a sack of potatoes. Now,
there's no way to diagnose that or know that something like that could be coming. Wow,
nothing.
Just another one of those things to put on a list to be afraid of that you never knew about before.
Right. And what's his name? Bruno Kirby, the actor? Mm-hmm. He died from that. Whenever you hear somebody who's fairly young and just is healthy and just dies, and they usually call it a heart attack, but there was no heart attack. It just, had I been alone, I probably would have died. What was the weirdest coincidence, because everything's a series of coincidences, when they called 911, the paramedics were on the way to the ice cream place to get dessert.
Lucky for you. Lucky for you, they liked yogurt.
They like yogurt, right. I don't know if they stopped and did their stuff or I got dessert afterwards, but I did the full out-of-body experience, the whole thing. And I hate to tell everybody, the white light you see is because the blood drains out of your eyes immediately. So all you see is white light. But I did the whole out-of-body experience and the whole thing, and that's a story unto itself. But it was a wake-up call.
I bet.
And I realized at that point, everybody started treating me better until about 30 days when everything went back to the way it was before. And I realized that my life was miserable. I was very locked in. I was stuck. I was in a comfort zone that everywhere I looked, there was nowhere to get out of. And so what happens is you start to accept it. And until the pain of change becomes less than the pain of staying the same, you're going to stay right there. And at that point, the pain of change became way less than the pain of staying the same. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners out there and viewers are in the same place.
Yeah, a lot of people go through this at some point, sometimes more than once in their lives. Yeah. So that's the thing that happened that caused you to become what we now know as America's unstuck coach.
Right. And it got me to the point where when I realized I could get unstuck, and that knowing what was on the other side, because everything I wanted, needed, and desired was outside my realm, because otherwise I would have already had it. And I realized all the things I wanted, love, good job, doing what I wanted to do, a good career, enjoying life, were all outside of where I was.
Right.
Which led to a divorce and led to now dating on my own. So I'm really in the thick of it when it comes to dating at 55 and older.
So over 50 by the way, that's our topic today, right? Over 50 dating. You know, I know there are a lot of things that you help people with, but there's some commercial that I've seen on TV recently, one of those online dating services, and I don't remember what it's called, but it's specifically focused at 50 and over. So it's called
Our Time. It's called Our Time.
Okay, it sounds familiar. And so you know that it's something that matters to a large group of people, which boomers are. You know, we are a large group of people, and the world keeps adapting to us as we continue to, age. And it must be something important because there are websites cropping up, for just the over 50 crowd and dating. I can imagine. So how is working, and I don't know if you work with age groups other than boomers, but clearly you must work with boomers. How is working with them different, do you see?
I can absolutely say that I was just reading lately that the largest group of people, demographic, going through divorce right now are over 50.
Really? Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
We're living much longer than our parents ever lived and our grandparents ever lived. And people all of a sudden are not feeling old at 50 and 55, and they just feel that, they've raised the kids, they deserve to be happy. There's also a great deal of divorce among people being sick, where it used to be, the guy was the terrible one, and he left when the wife got sick. Now more and more wives are leaving when the man gets sick. I guess turnaround fair play.
Yeah, I guess so.
So, we're all not that different. Why are boomers different? Because we were programmed, and I do mean programmed by our parents and society a very, very long time ago. when you look around us, and I was just thinking about the other day, how much technology, look at the technology that we're using right now. When we were growing up, did we even think that this could ever exist?
Oh,
It was
no,
only in science
no, this
fiction.
was the Star Trek, stuff. We never imagined that we would actually be doing this one day.
Right.
Video calls. I mean,
Video calls and flat screen TVs. Remember that was we're going to have TVs that are only an inch thick. Yeah, right.
yeah, that you hang on the wall like a picture. Right.
So you can imagine that the values that were installed in us, the techniques of dating, what we needed to look for when we were young is very different than what we are now. And in fact, I'm in the process of putting together a new book, and it's going to be, if you're not 18 anymore, why are you still dating like you were? Get unstuck from the things that are holding you back from life. And we are still dating like we're 18 years old. What we were the only time, think about it, when were we taught how to date? When we were young.
Yeah.
And
well,
some of us
that's when most people, learn to date is when they're young. That's normal, right?
Right. And you go through the high school and the whole thing. And the other thing about our generation, which is very interesting, and I was thinking about this the other day, and somebody actually brought it up to my attention, was the fact that we are the Walt Disney generation. I never heard them say that before. And I said, what do you mean the Walt Disney generation? We're the first generation that was really indoctrinated to Snow White and Prince Charming. Think about it. All the Snow White, Cinderella, the chick flicks. I mean, really started in the 40s, 50s, 60s was the big days, the heyday of that. Harry Met Sally. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy falls in love, right? Girl meets, it's the same thing. It's the same story over and over again.
Yes.
And that's what we've been indoctrinated to.
Interesting.
And we have been taught that romantic love, chemistry is everything. And I think as you get older, you start to realize, or should realize, that chemistry isn't everything.
Yeah.
It's a nice start, but it's not what's going to keep you together over all those years. So when you're 18, what you're doing, and I don't know if you have a family now, but you're looking for a mate that's going to give you the best possible chance of having kids.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to have a great family. You're going to have great life together, build a career, and the whole thing. And a young girl taught me this, and I thought it was so funny. 27 years old, going on 55. One of those kids.
Yeah.
And she said, women pick men for what they think they can be, a project. That's why a lot of women like the bad boy. Because she's going to reform
That might
him.
be true. That might be true.
I mean, there's no scientific, analysis behind this, but she's a smart kid. And she said, men pick women for what they see in front of them now. And then 20 years later, they both look at each other and say, you aren't the person I married. Right?
Yeah.
She's 20 pounds heavier. He's not got the job and not executive vice president or CEO of Goldman Sachs, and they're both disappointed. It is, the divorce happens, they separate, now you start that whole process over again. But do you start from that point? No, you start from the beginning point again. And I think people are going to find that's why second marriages fail so often. You're still looking for that first marriage, just thinking that you're older and wiser.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So that leads me into the next question. Now that we've dived into this topic a bit, right, of dating after 50, why don't you give people your top 3 tips?
Top 3 tips.
Right.
One is forget about chemistry. Now, I don't mean forget about chemistry. Think about connection first. Do you connect with this person? Is there interest in this person? I know plenty of people out there, myself included, who've been involved in relationships that were pure chemistry and you had no connection besides the chemistry. That is the number one thing. The number 2 thing is know what's important. And when I talk about know what's important, what are your values? Most people don't know what their values are. The values that you were when you were young in a relationship have changed. A value of having children is no longer important. Why are you still picking somebody? Because this is somebody who might be, whether you think about it consciously or subconsciously, this is still somebody who might be the mother of your children or father of your children. So you're still looking for that. What's important is is this a person I really want to spend the rest of my life with? Is this a person that I'm going to take care of in sickness and in health? Because there's a lot more sickness coming up than there is health.
Right.
And the last thing is in the values part is, and I've thought about it, other people thought about it, is this the person I want to be making major medical decisions, life and death medical decisions for me? Because remember, when you're 20, 30, 40, you don't think about death.
No, it's not even on your radar.
It's not even that you even may ever have to make these decisions or be faced with them. And the third tip, and this to me is one of the biggest, is it's a process. It's not one and done. People go out there looking for one and done. It isn't, because I know I've been out with a lot of women. I did a count, I think it's about 125 over the last 3 years.
Wow.
And whom I date now is very different than I dated when I first started. The reasons I pick them are different than when I first started. And as part of that, the red flags I really pay attention to now. Because they're different red flags than I did before.
Oh, that's interesting. And it all makes sense, but I wouldn't have thought about it. But those are good tips. I like those. And it makes me realize you're absolutely correct. How I learned to date forever ago. I've been married 23 years now, so I stopped dating a long time ago. We were together 2 years before that, so it's been 25 years since I've actively dated. But you're right. What I was looking for then would be completely different than what I would look for now. But I wouldn't know better.
Right, because the only thing you know is what you learned 25 years ago.
Right, and more. Right.
And that's why people keep making the same mistakes over and over again, because you've not changed the way you do things. That's Einstein doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah.
And that is off the rebound. That's all those things that people make mistakes about. My second marriage, I knew was a mistake from the minute I committed to it, but I did it anyway. Because there were other things that I justified making it worth it. And it ended up just the way every one of my friends knew it was going to end up. So when I said I was getting divorced, nobody was very surprised.
Right. Oh, interesting. All right. So, Andrew, now having your 3 tips, which gives people a lot to think about, I'm sure, because it gave me a lot to think about. And I'm not even on the market looking to date, but I realize things have changed, and I wouldn't have thought about that. So, identify for me what you think is a boomer's biggest challenge or concern or obstacle that they're hitting when it comes to having to get back into the dating pool.
Unrealistic expectations. That's the number one thing. The one and done.
Right.
The assumptions, that people make. A lot of women assume that all men want young women. Well, not all men want young women. A lot of very insecure older men want young women. And I was just at a restaurant where they had music, and there was a lot of older men with younger women. And you could see that they were trying to out-macho the other men there. Now, the older couples were dancing and having a great time. Obviously, they had a lot in common. You could see when they were dancing, they were leading and following. There was really a connection between them. And with the younger ones, you could see there was a connection between her and his money. So, that was that kind of thing. So the first thing is to realize that you're not 18, that you need to get a new set of priorities. You need to examine your values and what's important to you. And realize it's going to be a process. It's painful. It's work. It's not easy.
Right.
And there's a lot of rejection on both sides, especially with online dating, because it's really... like going to Las Vegas sometimes, trying to hit the right number.
Let me ask you a question about online dating. That wasn't exactly our topic today, but in terms of online dating, because, I've watched movies, where the protagonists are involved in online dating. How much untruth goes on in those profiles? Do you have a sense?
Oh, I do. And it's on both sides. Women complain men lie, and men complain women lie.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And they both lie. I would say out of the women's profiles, because that's what I tend to read, there's a lot of truth in their lies.
That could be a whole nother show, I'm sure.
Right. There's a lot of truth in their lies.
Yeah.
And it's learning to read through what they have there. Now, the other thing with reading online profiles is a profile should be used to winnow people out, not to cast a wide net. And when I see a woman and she's 60 years old and she's still ziplining and climbing mountains and doing this and traveling all over the world, I'm saying to myself, how much of this is really true and how much did she really do when she was young that she actually paid for herself?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times all these trips were done on business and were done with the husband and stuff on his business and things like that.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that's what you see. The other thing you get is pictures of when they were 20.
Yeah, that happens in social media. I deal in, business and digital media, right? And I caution people about that all the time. There's nothing worse than meeting someone in person from a business standpoint. I can imagine how much worse it is dating, right? From a business standpoint, where you've seen their picture, you connected to them on LinkedIn or somewhere,
right?
And you realize it's their high school yearbook photo, and they're really, 50 or 60 years old, and you think, oh my God, you are not the person I thought you were.
Well, my favorite is when you see all the different pictures and you see the picture when they were a cheerleader, and it's like going back and looking at a new car. But I'm not getting that model. The model I have is 190,000 miles on it. It's been seen a lot of road.
Right, so yeah, be realistic.
It's had a few dents, a couple of paint jobs, some body work. And, I don't really care. I'm not getting that model. It's nice to look at, but it's not mine. And that's what I always react to.
That's funny. That is so funny. So if you could encourage people with something today, something that they could get off their chair right now, go out and do today to get started, really, either getting started because they need to start dating, or they're unsuccessfully dating, what would you tell them to do?
Well, the first thing I would do is tell them to get a copy of my book.
Very good.
On Amazon. It's available on Amazon both in Kindle version and in hardcover. It's there. It's in its revision. Second thing is they can go to my website, or which is americasunstuckcoach.com, or they can reach me at Andrew at americasunstuckcoach.com. Just send me a little note. I do offer a half-hour recalibration session for free to anybody who calls me through your podcast.
I like that. I
so
like
all I
what
have to
you
do is
call
mention
that.
the
A recalibration session. I like that. That's cool.
Well, I always call it your picker. Your picker is out of calibration. It's when you think about it, anytime, if you're a sailor, anytime you leave a port, you have to recalibrate your compass, because every port has a declination or whatever you want to call it. So how come when you leave the port of a marriage or the port of a relationship, why aren't you recalibrating your compass, your picker? You obviously picked wrong, or you picked incorrectly. Why not get right back on course, or get on the course that you need to get to where your final goal is?
Right. Very good point. And I just want to tell people the website again. It's www.americasunstuckcoach, spelled exactly as it should be in the English language. I often have to say that because people end up spelling things funny sometimes in web addresses. But
right.
It's America's Unstuck Coach. And people who know me know that I love Twitter. So I will tell you that you can find Andrew on Twitter at Unstuck Coach. As well, and you're on Facebook too. They can find you at America's Unstuck Coach on Facebook.
A guide for those over 50, yes.
There you go. So it has been wonderful talking to you today. I really enjoyed this. Like I told you, dating's not on my radar necessarily, but I know it is for a lot of boomers. And you really made me stop and think some things that I would not have thought of before.
Let's hope you don't have to use them.
Yes, exactly. Would you like to share a brief story or an inspirational quote, something to leave us with before we go?
Let me see. Oh, that's an interesting thing is, you get what you focus on. That's the law of attraction. You get what you focus on. So focus on what you want.
Very good. And I believe that wholeheartedly. Sometimes people, roll their eyes when they hear law of attraction. But just think about it. Think back in your life when you have received access to the things you really did want. What was going on in your head at the time that happened. It's because you were you are attracting the things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that you want. And
Absolutely.
same thing for negativity too.
That was what I was just going to say. So
Yeah.
let's say this: focus on the positive things. You get the positive things that you want,
Right.
so focus on the positive
Right.
things you
Don't think
need.
about all the things you don't want
Don't
in
want.
another person, because you're going to attract those kind of people. Think
That's a
about the things-
conversation unto itself.
Okay, perfect. Andrew Pace, America's Unstuck Coach. I want to tell you how much I have enjoyed this conversation, and I really appreciate your time today to come on the Boomer's Ultimate Guide podcast.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks a lot. And for all of you out there, this has been the Boomer's Ultimate Guide podcast, and we will see you on the next episode. Take care.
Terrific.
Thank you.
You're really
Boom, baby. That's it for now. See you next time on Boomer's Ultimate Guide podcast.